Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about the processing canvas. We're also going to talk about the different processing functions that are provided to us, and then um, these two processing variables, internal variables called mouse x and mouse y, and what they do. Um, so let's begin. The processing canvas is basically a place that allows you to draw stuff with your code. Let's open up processing. Let's write the basic outline of a program. All right. If you don't want to see this message appear again, you could read it through once so that you can, understand what's going on. Uncheck this and then just close it. Let's write a basic sketch. Void setup. Void draw. So by default, when you run an empty program, this little window appears. That's the canvas. The canvas is basically where your code draws things. Because we don't have anything being drawn right now, um, the canvas is going to be blank and it's going to be this default size, which I think is 100 and 100, but whatever. Um, this function right here called size, it has two things that you give to that function, each of which are called arguments. Well, combined, they're called argument. This is the first argument, and this is the second argument. The first argument is is a number, and that number specifies how wide um, the canvas should be in the x direction, and the second argument specifies how high um, in pixels the canvas should be in the y direction. So if we run this again, you'll see that the canvas is now 250 wide by 500 pixels tall, and they're roughly, as you can see here, the width is roughly half the height of the height, or half the width of the height. So that's what the size function does. It creates a canvas of some particular size. The background function is a function that sets the color of the background. Now, in this case, I'm going to set a color, but in the future, you can look up how to set the background to a particular image. Zero, so if we use a number from 0, so if we give background, the function background, a number between 0 and 255, it's going to draw a gray variations of a gray color, 0 being black and 255 being white. Okay, and if we put some number in between, like half of that for instance, it's going to draw a gray value, and then the gray value will be lighter as you get closer to 255 and darker as you approach 0. But I like white on black, so I'm going to set the background to black, and I'm going to use actually, before we begin, I'd like you to get your guys to review the canvas, and to do that, you go to the processing page, you go to tutorials, hello processing, click there to begin. I think it's under shapes. So watch through this segment. He'll give you an explanation on the canvas and how the rulers work for the canvas. Understanding how the canvas works in terms of numbers, in terms of where things are, is very important because that's how you specify where things should be drawn. For instance, let's can actually resize this window here. Um, let's do that now. 250 by 500. Let's set the background to black. I'm going to introduce this new function called stroke, and stroke takes in a color as argument, so we can specify an RGB value like that. This is red, and what stroke does is it's like you can think of it as an artist's stroke. on a canvas. Um, what that means is that the artist picks out a color before he puts that color onto a canvas, before he puts paint on canvas. And similarly, the stroke takes in a color, and what it allows the computer to do is it allows the computer to draw um, with whatever instructions that appears underneath stroke um, in a particular color. So for instance, if we draw a line from the coordinate 0, 0, which is up here, to the coordinate 100, 100, to the coordinate 100, 100, what's going to happen is this line is going to be, because it appears directly underneath red, it's going to appear as a red line. Now when I run this code, these two shapes will disappear because this code does not include instructions to display these two shapes. So don't be alarmed. Okay, 0, 0 to 100, 100. This is the X scale. This is the Y scale. And notice that it begins at 0 and it goes to 250, which is what we specified here, right? In the size function. And in the Y direction, we have 0 to 500, as we've specified here. And the background is black, so everything's looking good. So the reason why the instruction stroke is so important is because, and the ordering matters, is because we can do something like this, where we're going to use this is RGB, so red, green, blue. So this is going to be a green pen. Let's draw another line. This time we'll draw a line from 100, 100. That's 100 in the X, 100 in the Y, or Y equals 100, or X equals 100 here, X equals Y. So that's the coordinate of the first point, and then we need a coordinate for a second point. So let's draw at X equals 200 and Y equals 100. So it's going to draw another line from 100 to 100, so from this point to this point here, where X equals 200 and Y equals 100. And you know, this guy will explain it in the video, but that's a basic summary of what he's going to talk about. So if we run this code, we'll see, we should see a red line going from 0, 0 to 100, 100, and then a green line going from 100, 100 to 200, 100. There we go. Now, the reason why I wrote stroke a second time here is because the color to which following instructions the instructions that follow stroke apply only applies to the stroke instruction that was written before that instruction. I'm sorry, that was a bit confusing. So once you specify stroke, the instructions that draw stuff onto the canvas underneath gets that color that you specified using stroke. So here, line gets the color red because stroke, it uses the stroke immediately before it. For instance, so if I remove this second line here will be drawn in red. And it doesn't really matter the spacing, like you could do this and it'll still be red. See? But if I put stroke here, this line instruction will look to this stroke and this line instruction will look to that stroke on line 7. Okay? So you have to specify the color before you draw something. Okay? And let's say we wanted to draw this, use these instructions in our sketch. What we would do is just copy and paste, and these spaces don't really matter, but I use it because it's helpful to, it lets me know where the brackets are a little bit better. It makes the code looks neater, that's all. See? And the reason why I did that is because that indentation here lets me know that all these instruction is inside. All these instructions are inside these curly brackets. So if we run it, we should see the same thing as we did in this window. And look, they match almost perfectly. Actually, they do match perfectly. The reason why it looks a little bit taller is because there's a window border around this thing, and so it's not going to be exact. But it's specified in pixels, so it's going to be 250 pixels wide on your screen. Okay, we'll stop that. Okay, I'll talk about the point, line, rect, and ellipse function in another video.